Hello, my name is Emily Jackson, and I'm 35 years old. I live in New York City on the Upper West Side. From the outside, my life seemed to be picture perfect. I had a job I was proud of, a loving husband, and a beautiful apartment in one of the most vibrant cities in the world. But as the years went on, I realized that there was something missing, a gap that I never imagined would cause me to lose everything. I had always prided myself on being the kind of woman who had it together. I was ambitious, driven, and successful in my career. But there was this quiet loneliness, a feeling that I couldn't shake no matter how busy my life became. My husband Mark and I had been married for almost 10 years. At first, everything was great. We were in love, or at least I thought we were. Mark was everything you could want in a husband, smart, kind, and hardworking. But over time, something shifted. We became like two people living in the same house but not really living together. We had stopped talking about our hopes and dreams. Our connection had weakened, and in its place was a growing distance that neither of us seemed to notice at first. I didn't know how to fix it, and neither did he. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but the truth was that I felt emotionally abandoned. There were nights when Mark would come home late from work, too tired to talk, too tired to connect. He would kiss me on the cheek, tell me he loved me, and then retreat into his own world. His work, his phone, his mind. And I was left there, alone, feeling like I wasn't enough. As the years passed, I started to change. I wasn't the woman Mark had married anymore. I didn't know who I was becoming, but I felt like I was slipping away piece by piece. I tried to ignore it at first, telling myself that all relationships go through rough patches. But the more I tried to convince myself that everything was fine, the more empty I felt inside. I started spending more time at work, burying myself in projects, just to avoid coming home and facing the growing distance between Mark and me. My mind was constantly occupied, but my heart was aching. I longed for the intimacy we once shared, the connection that seemed to be fading with each passing day. Then it happened. I met him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something I had intended. But one afternoon during a business conference, I met someone who would change everything. His name was Adam. He was charming, attentive, and easy to talk to. And for the first time in a long while, I felt seen. He wasn't just listening to my words, he was listening to my heart. He asked me about my dreams, my passions, and he genuinely seemed interested in my life. It was a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. The first time we spoke, it was just a conversation, nothing more. But something in the way he looked at me, the way he cared about what I had to say, sparked something inside me. I went home that night thinking about our conversation, replaying every word in my head. The feeling of being understood and appreciated was intoxicating, and for the first time in a long while, I felt alive. It wasn't just the words he said, but the way he made me feel. Adam didn't just see me as Mark's wife. He saw me as Emily, the woman with hopes, dreams, and desires. And suddenly I realized that I had forgotten who I was. I had been so consumed with being a wife, a daughter, and a colleague that I had lost touch with the woman I had once been. As the days went by, I found myself thinking about Adam more and more. He reached out and we started talking, first casually, then more frequently. Our conversations turned into texts and then calls, and somewhere along the way, I crossed a line that I had sworn I would never cross. I knew I was betraying Mark. I knew that the person I was becoming wasn't the person I wanted to be. But the more I saw Adam, the more I craved his attention. He made me feel things I hadn't felt in years, things that were both exciting and terrifying. He was the escape I had been longing for. And I thought to myself, I deserve this. I deserve to feel wanted again. But with each passing day, the guilt weighed heavier. I tried to justify my actions, telling myself that I wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just a fling, just a few conversations that didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew the truth. What I was doing was hurting my marriage. And the worst part was that I didn't know how to stop. There were nights when I lay awake in bed next to Mark, the man I had once loved with all my heart, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was lying to him. I was lying to myself. I was lying to the woman I used to be. It was a dangerous game, and I knew I was playing with fire. But the more I told myself I could stop, the more I found myself falling deeper into the affair. The excitement of it, the secret, the thrill, it all became too much. I was living in two worlds, one with my husband and one with Adam. After night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing. I was torn between two people, two lives. I felt like I was losing myself, like I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. The guilt and shame consumed me, but so did the desire to keep going, to keep feeling special, wanted, and alive. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the emptiness I had been ignoring for so long. The affair was a symptom, not the cause. The cause was the deep loneliness and yearning for connection I had been suppressing. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just running from my marriage, I was running from myself. June 26, 2025, everything changed. The day started like any other. I woke up early, went to work, tried to keep my mind busy as I usually did. But that evening, something felt off. My chest was tight, like someone was sitting on it. I thought it was just stress, maybe too much coffee, or maybe it was my lack of sleep catching up with me. But as the night went on, it only got worse. The pain in my chest grew sharper, more intense. I tried to sit up, but then my left arm went numb, and I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred, my body felt cold. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't think straight. I tried to call out to Mark, but my voice wouldn't come. The room around me started spinning, and before I could even react, everything went black. I don't remember the exact moment I died. It wasn't dramatic, there was no bright light, no loud sounds, just a sudden stillness. A silence that was louder than anything I'd ever heard. I didn't know what to feel. I thought maybe I was dreaming. But the longer I stayed there, the more I realized this wasn't a dream. This was real. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel any fear. There was no panic, no regret, just peace. It was a peace that I hadn't known in years, not since before everything had gone wrong in my life. I could see through the walls of my apartment, watching the world continue on around me. The neighbors were going about their evening routines, completely unaware that I had just died. Everything seemed so normal, yet I was not a part of it anymore. It was like I had become a ghost, a bystander in my own life. That's when I saw it. Light. It started as a faint glow in the distance, but it quickly grew brighter, warmer. The light didn't hurt my eyes. In fact, it felt inviting, like it was calling me, wrapping me in a sense of comfort I had never known. And then I saw him. Jesus. He wasn't the figure I had seen in paintings or statues. He wasn't distant or stern. He was real, human, like someone I could talk to, someone who saw me, really saw me, beyond everything I had ever done wrong. He walked toward me, and with each step he took, the light around him became even more radiant. His presence was unlike anything I had ever felt. It wasn't overwhelming, it was gentle. His eyes were kind, full of love. Eyes that saw through all my mistakes, all my flaws, and loved me anyway. When he spoke my name, Emily, his voice was warm, like honey mixed with thunder, powerful and tender all at once. "Come with me," he said, and I didn't hesitate. I didn't question it. I just followed him, trusting that this was where I needed to be. Finally, I asked, "Jesus, am I dead?" He smiled gently. "Yes, your body is, but you are more alive now than you've ever been." I was silent for a long time, trying to understand what he meant. The truth of his words settled in me like a seed taking root. I was alive. But what did that mean for everything I had left behind? For the mistakes I had made? Then I asked, what happens now? Heaven? Hell? Are you going to judge me? He looked at me seriously, but his eyes never lost their love. "Emily, I need to show you something about your life. Something you haven't understood yet." Jesus stood up, and with a wave of his hand, the beautiful garden around us faded. Suddenly we were standing in my apartment, only it wasn't the same. The place I had once called home was now covered in darkness, a thick, oily substance that clung to everything. The walls, the furniture, even the air itself. "What is this?" I whispered, horrified. "This is what sin looks like in the spiritual realm," Jesus said quietly. "This is how your life looks now to those who see with eternal eyes." I looked around in shock. My apartment, the one I was so proud of, now looked like a toxic wasteland, filled with nothing but darkness and decay. I wasn't just looking at a messy apartment. I was looking at the consequences of my actions. The affair, the lies, the deceit. They had left a mark on my soul. The weight of my sin became so real, so tangible, that I could almost feel it pressing on me, suffocating me. Leave me standing in the darkness of my apartment for long. He walked over to my nightstand where my phone sat, a symbol of the secret life I had kept hidden from Mark. He pointed to it gently. "Tell me about this," he said. My heart dropped. I knew exactly what he meant. The videos, the secret searches, the moments of weakness. For 6 years, I had been filling my mind with pornography, using it to escape the emptiness I felt inside. I was ashamed, but I had to face it. I could no longer hide. "For 6 years, you've been filling your mind with this," Jesus said softly. "But this isn't just about what you watch. It's about what you choose over me." I was speechless, my face burning with guilt. I had tried to stop countless times, deleted apps, threw away magazines, prayed for help. But always, I went back to it. Jesus didn't condemn me. Instead, he waved his hand and the scene shifted. Suddenly, I could see the demons that had been following me, dark, twisted creatures with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. They were all around my apartment, lurking in the shadows, feeding off my choices. Every time you chose lust over love, every time you chose self-gratification over self-control, you opened the door for these demons, Jesus said. They've been living with you, feeding off your weakness. I was terrified, but Jesus didn't let go. He wrapped his arms around me and said, "But there is hope, Emily. There is always a way out. You don't have to fight this alone anymore." Jesus took my hand and led me to a beautiful, crystal-clear river that flowed through the garden. The water was inviting, almost glowing, as if it were alive. He stopped at the edge and looked at me. "This is the river of life," he said. "It washes away all sin, all shame, all the things that bind you, but you must choose to step into it." I looked at the water. It shimmered, and I could feel its power, but I hesitated. I had lived with my mistakes for so long. I had allowed the shame and guilt to control me. I wasn't sure I was worthy of this cleansing. Jesus smiled gently. "You're not meant to carry the burden of your past anymore. Step into the river and let it wash you clean." With trembling legs, I stepped into the water, and as soon as my feet touched the river, I felt it. A warmth, a peace, a strength like nothing I had ever experienced. It was as if all the darkness, all the weight I had been carrying, was being washed away. The shame, the guilt, the self-loathing, it melted away with every step. I stood there for what felt like hours, letting the water wash over me. And when I finally stepped out, I was different. I felt new, clean, free. Jesus looked at me with such love in his eyes, and I knew something had changed in me, something I couldn't explain in words. He reached into his robe and pulled out a small scroll. He handed it to me. "This is for you, Emily, the message I want you to share." I unrolled the scroll, and as I read the words, I felt them burn into my heart. It wasn't just a message for me. It was a message for every woman who had ever felt trapped, ashamed, or lost. "Tell my daughters that I see their secret struggles," the message read. "Tell them that what they do in private matters to me. Tell them that pornography and masturbation are not harmless habits. They are spiritual doors that let the enemy into their lives. But tell them that I love them too much to leave them in bondage. Tell them that freedom is possible, but it requires complete surrender, not just good intentions." I held the scroll tightly in my hands, overwhelmed by the weight of what I had just read. "But how do I share this, Jesus?" I asked. "How do I tell people something so personal, so embarrassing?" He smiled. "Just as I am telling you, with love, with hope, not judgment, with truth, but not condemnation." The garden began to fade around us, and I felt myself being pulled back to my body, back to the life I had left behind. I didn't want to leave. It was perfect here. It was peaceful. But Jesus held my face in his hands and said, "You won't go back alone. I will be with you. Now that you understand the spiritual reality of your struggle, you can fight it the right way." He took me to a tree that bore fruit unlike anything I had ever seen, glowing apples that seemed to radiate light. "Eat," he said. I took a bite, and it was the sweetest, most delicious thing I had ever tasted. But more than that, I felt a surge of strength flow through me. It was as if I had been given the power to overcome anything that lay ahead. "This is my strength," Jesus said. "You can't fight addiction in your own power, but with mine, nothing is impossible." He handed me a small scroll. "This is the message I want you to carry back with you. It's for you and for all the others who are struggling." With that, I was pulled back to my body. I gasped for air as the paramedics worked on me, trying to revive me. One of them looked at his watch. "She's been down for 22 minutes, he said. "Let's try the defibrillator one more time." When they shocked me, my heart started beating again, and I opened my eyes. "Jesus," I whispered. They rushed me to the hospital, and for the next 10 days, the doctors were baffled. How could I have survived such a massive heart attack with no brain damage? How was I perfectly fine, physically, when I had been clinically dead for 22 minutes? I knew the answer. It was because I had a purpose. I had work to do. When I finally got home, I did something I never thought I'd be able to do. I deleted everything. All the apps, the websites, the magazines, everything that had once controlled me, I threw away. I didn't want to be that person anymore. I called my sister and confessed everything to her. Not the near-death experience, but my addiction. I needed someone to know, someone to hold me accountable. She was shocked, but supportive. She helped me find a counselor who specialized in sexual addiction. I learned that I wasn't alone, that millions of women struggle with the same thing. I learned about healing, about brain chemistry, and about how to take back control of my life. It hasn't been easy. Some days I still want to fall back into old patterns, but now I know I don't have to fight alone. I remember what Jesus showed me. I remember the garden, the river, the scroll. And every time I am tempted, I know that I have his strength to help me resist. And now I share my story with you, with anyone who feels trapped, anyone who feels like they can't escape the darkness. I want you to know, you are not alone. You can change. You can be free. Jesus is waiting to make you new. Freedom is real. I am living proof of that. Jesus doesn't condemn you. He loves you. He sees your struggle, and he is waiting to bring you out of the dark.